WATD presents John Paul, the Car Doctor. All things automotive. Have questions? Call 781-837-4900. Now, here's John Paul, the Car Doctor.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Car Doctor program on 95.9 WATD, your South Shores radio station. Well, this morning we are going to try to talk to Junior D'Amato. Junior D'Amato owns Junior's Automotive. It used to be in Hyde Park in Middleborough. Now it's just in Middleborough. He closed his Hyde Park shop after, I think, 50 years of being there. I stopped into, it was sort of, back up a little bit. We left Florida on Monday morning, drove back up here up north, and, of course, the car that I was driving, my regular car, our Hyundai Santa Fe, the sticker was expiring this month, so I went to the local AAA approved auto repair shop that was in Dennis, where I live, Dennisport. Route 134 service guy in there, who I haven't really talked to in quite a while. He was always one of our AAA approved shops. Years ago, him and I were on the same Chronicle program together. I don't remember exactly what it was for, but we were on the same program together, and I didn't get a chance to chat with him today when I went in, but I wanted to make sure that I got that inspection sticker done. The other car, which is, we have an older Volkswagen that I paid almost nothing for it, and it sat here since we left in October to go check on the hurricane damage and all of that, all the issues that we had down in Florida. And that car hadn't literally rolled a wheel since October. So I decided, why not take it for a quick test drive, make sure it's running okay. And I had it on a battery tender the entire time, so the battery was fully charged. The fuel tank was full of gas. I always put gas stabilizer in and fill the fuel tank. Fresh oil change. Lubricated the things that looked like they were probably going to stick. And then, once I got all that stuff done, put the car away, put a car cover over it. And this year, I left the car cover on for too long. The car did get a little bit moldy inside. A little kind of green moldy stuff built up inside of it, which took really no time to clean, but it was still kind of disgusting when I opened the door, even though I also had those plastic containers that are filled with some kind of salt that sucks the moisture out of the air. I had those in the car, and they were full of water. They certainly picked up plenty of water inside the car. But I cleaned up the car, got it cleaned up, looked pretty good, made sure there was air in the tires, and then said, you know what, it needs a sticker. Why don't I go up and see Junior up at Junior's Automotive? That's a pretty good ride. That's probably a 30-mile ride or so from my house. That will kind of exercise the car a little bit. I'll see how it's running, because it is our second car when we're here. So, it's good to make sure it's going to run okay. And, bring it up there and get an inspection sticker. So I went up there, and he checked all the lights and wipers and horn and gas cap and jacked it up and checked the front end and checked the park and brake, and then plugged in his computer to it and made sure that there was no codes like he was supposed to, and printed out the sticker, so we were good to go. So the car passed okay. And while I was there, I said, what are you doing on Sunday morning? You want to join me on the radio? We can talk about what's going on in your shop. What do you see, and what have you been driving the last couple months for some of the test cars that he still drives? So we're waiting to see if we can get a hold of him. I don't think we've gotten a hold of him yet. So, but he did tell me he was on the road this morning, so maybe he's in an area where it's a little bit hard to get his cell phone to work. So the ride home was about 1,600 miles. We didn't do it we tried to take it as easy as we could, I guess. So on Monday morning, we left pretty early. It was probably 6:30 or so. So, got up at 5, got ready, closed up the house, shut off the water, unplugged stuff that needed to be unplugged, got in the car. Before we headed up, I changed the oil in the car, put new tires on the car, even though it really didn't need it, but I had the tires anyway, so I had those put on. Put the new tires on the car. This time I'm trying Nokian tires. Wanted to see how they were, and nice quiet riding tire. Although I do question how one of them was balanced. I saw some kind of odd weight placement on one of the tires, but anyway, it was a good smooth ride coming up. But we drove the first day from where we are in Florida, which is the biggest town near us is Venice, Florida. Gives you an idea. We're north of Fort Myers, but drove to about the North Carolina, South Carolina border. Technically, we stayed overnight in South Carolina, but we are 10 minutes away from the North Carolina border. So we had a pretty long ride the first day. My wife doesn't really like long road trips. But we drove for 6:30 till it was probably 4:30 in the afternoon. Had to stop for gas a couple of times because one of the issues with the Hyundai is it doesn't have the biggest fuel tank in the world. So on a good day, if I fill the fuel tank, it'll say it has maybe a 350 mile range. If I stay at the 65 miles an hour, and a lot of the speed limits vary anywhere from 55 miles to 70 miles an hour. But if I try to stay right at 65, I can get just about 30 miles per gallon. On a full fill up, and I don't want to jam the gas tank full of gas because that's bad for the evaporative emission system. Maybe I can get 375 miles on a tank of gas. So had to stop for gas a couple of times. Stopped in the Carolinas, like I said, right on that South Carolina, North Carolina border. The next day, we decided to, rather than go up 95, we took a kind of an odd route up through Virginia, through Pennsylvania, and this smoky haze that you hear about, pretty bad in New York and Pennsylvania. But we avoided all of like the New Jersey Turnpike, New York completely, went over the Tappan Zee Bridge, or the Mario Cuomo Bridge as it's called now, and so kind of missed a lot of that confusing, hectic traffic that you run into. So we kind of made it, and I said to my wife, how far do you want to drive? And she said, well, let's try to get to the Tappan Zee Bridge. So, White Plains-ish, somewhere up that way. So that's sort of what we did. We kind of went as far as we could go that way. And we drove, and we ended up in Fairfield, Connecticut, stayed at a Ramada Inn, I guess, in Fairfield. We probably got there. It was probably the worst traffic we encountered was right on that New York Connecticut border, right into Fairfield, where we had a lot of traffic tie-ups, all just volume, nothing more than that, no crashes to speak of. But it was all traffic volume that was slowing us down. Found this Fairfield Inn, and we don't do what a lot of people do. A lot of people, I think, put a little bit more thought into their trip. They plan their hotel stops ahead of time, so they, maybe even going to get a better deal on a hotel. We just sort of drove until we felt we couldn't drive anymore. And so we stopped at this Fairfield Inn. It was fine. Although it was a little bit odd. I haven't experienced this in a long time. They actually put a $50 hold on my credit card to cover incidentals, even though there was no incidentals that you could cover. I mean, it wasn't like there was a mini bar or anything stocked in the refrigerator. So I don't know if that meant if you stole the towels. I don't know what the $50, but it came off within a couple days, so that was fine. And we, the first night we went out, we stopped for dinner, and really about the only place available was a Mexican restaurant, which was fine. We had a great meal, and on the second night, we asked the guy at the hotel what's near here, and he said, "Oh, there's a really good Mexican restaurant." And I'm like, oh, we just had Mexican food last night. Let's go. How about something else? And he said, well, there's a Middle Eastern restaurant or that opened up, or a Middle Eastern sort of theme restaurant that opened up. And he's like, you could try that. And we went in there, and it was a very elegant-looking place, and I was not dressed elegantly. But it was a very elegant-looking place, and we went in, and we just kind of sat at the bar and talked to the bartender a little bit, and I said, how long you been open? Place looks brand new. She said, well, we're not even really open yet. This is sort of a soft opening. We're not really going to open for another week or so. We're trying to work a few things out. And so we said, oh, okay. And so we ordered a drink and looked at the menu and found a few things on the menu that looked pretty good. And then at that point, I guess the owner came over, or one of the owners or one of the managers came over and asked us how everything was. And I actually had a little criticism of a couple things, and nothing bad. I said, we ordered hummus satini with, and I said it's odd that it didn't come with more pita bread and red onion, because that's what I'm sort of used to. And he said, you know what, you're right. He said, my mother-in-law or mother-in-law, I think, is Syrian, and she always serves red onion with hummus. You're right, we should be serving red onion with it, and we haven't got the whole bread thing quite worked out yet. I'm glad you reminded me of that. And it was some other little minor thing. So, and it was fine. It was all good. So we got, and then we made our way here. And it was a pretty uneventful ride here, but because the house had been closed up since October, we had to come in and, turn everything on and go shopping, because we kind of really emptied the house out and emptied the refrigerator and all that sort of stuff, because the refrigerator we have here is relatively new. We got it last year, and normally our old refrigerator, we'd just kind of leave it on. Because old refrigerators ran forever. New ones don't always run forever. And the old one we had, which there was really nothing really wrong with it other than it was probably 30 years old, but we decided it was time to replace it. So this year we unplugged this one, and so we were, had to go buy condiments and all that sort of stuff. And some of the stuff we took actually from Florida up here. So it was sort of an interesting ride up. I talk to people occasionally that say they do this ride in 20 hours straight through. I don't know how you do that. Either you have a lot more comfortable seats, or you get out and walk around a lot more in between. Just that is not for me. And realistically, you get that tired, you're not going to be a safe driver either. So one of my neighbors in Florida, they live up in Michigan, and he said to me, how hard is it just to sit and hold on to the wheel? It's not like it's that much work. But, yeah, it's a long time sitting in a car for that long period of time. A lot of people I know try to do it in 2 days. They drive for 12 hours, stay overnight somewhere, drive another 12 hours, and do it. I don't know, splitting it up in 3 days. And someday, if we continue doing this nonsense, maybe we'll actually do some sightseeing on the way. Every time I drive by the Don Garlits drag racing museum, I keep saying we ought to stop in there and see what it's like. Should we go to Tennessee and see the Corvette Museum? There's a lot of stuff to see on the way, and not just car stuff. A lot of stuff to see all up and down on the East Coast that probably is worth stopping to see. But we usually, we want to get down and get there, and we want to get back and get everything squared away up here. So it always seems like a little bit of a hassle.
We have Tom from Kingston on the line.
Well, let's talk to Tom from Kingston then. Since we can't get a hold of Junior, let's talk to Tom from Kingston.
Oh, some second fiddle?
You're always first fiddle, Tom.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So you didn't talk about the exciting things coming up. Did you see any speed traps? How was the police details coming up?
It actually was pretty, other than you'd see an occasional state police car in Virginia, where you knew Virginia's a tough place.
Yes, it is.
It's anything, if you're more than, I think, 10 miles over the speed limit, it ends up being a I don't know, more than a moving violation, and you end up having to, hire someone to go to court for you. It's a whole bunch of craziness. But no, I actually didn't see that much of that. Again, mostly in Virginia. Saw some sheriff's county cars in the Carolinas, but not that much. Connecticut, I saw a fair amount of unmarked police cars, because you can always tell an unmarked police car because, if you notice the strobe lights buried in the dash or some lights in the rear window, and also if it's something like a Tahoe or an Explorer, those vehicles in civilian trim don't have rear door locks, but in the police trim they do. So if you ever see like a Tahoe or an Explorer with the rear door, with the a lock for the rear hatch, those are typically police cars. So I did see some of those, but I was trying to both maximize my fuel economy and not get a ticket, because I work for AAA. Can't really get tickets,
Isn't that an excuse you can give to the trooper? Say, sir, I work for AAA.
Well, I will tell a story that once upon a time, and I guess I can't get in trouble for it now because it was 10 years ago.
Okay.
I was driving to the New York Auto Show, and I was in an Audi. I think it was an R. It was a hot Audi, whatever it was. It was a pretty fancy Audi, and it was literally 3:30 in the morning, and I just got off the Mass Pike, and I was heading down, I guess, 84.
Oh
yeah, and I was doing 85 or 90.
Ooh.
But I was literally the only one on the road. There was nobody around. And I kind of look way up ahead, and I see the reflection of the Mass State Police Cruiser. And I kind of said to myself, I wonder how fast you have to go to get him out of the... And all of a sudden I saw his lights come on.
You figured that one out.
Yeah. And I'm like... So I pull over, and he says to me, do you know why I stopped you? And I said, well, I can only guess because I was doing 80. And he said, or maybe a little bit more. And I said... Yeah, and he said, "How?" He said, "I'm going to need your license and registration." I said, "My license is going to be easy. My registration is going to be a little bit more difficult because this is a manufacturer's car. It's not my car, and let me look through the glove compartment to see if there's something in there that ties into the plate."
Okay.
And I found some kind of paperwork, and I handed it to him, and he said to me, "How's your driving record?" And I said, "It's good. I think, as far as I know, it's good." And he says, he hands me a written warning, and he said, yeah, it's a written warning. If you don't do anything stupid in the next year, it just kind of goes away.
Sure.
It's only a warning. And he says to me, just keep it under 80, will you? And so, and just when I got back to work, they ran my driver's license, and it was just because periodically at work they do spot checks of your driver's license, and because I'm listed to drive a company vehicle, I can drive anything from our little company van that we have to a tow truck or a ramp truck, I guess, if I wanted to. So I'm listed as one of the authorized drivers. So periodically they run background checks to make sure you haven't done anything dumb.
Yeah.
And so I said to the guy who runs the check, just so you know, I got stopped for speeding, and I got issued a written warning, and he goes, yeah, that probably won't show up. So a couple days later when they ran it, they said, no, it didn't show up. And I said, oh, well, okay. So, but I admitted to speeding, and like I said, it was when I got stopped, it was literally 3:30 in the morning, and there was no other traffic on the road, and like I said, I was just kind of comfortably cruising along. And then I saw that reflection of the Mass State Police Cruiser and went, oops. And so I slowed down after that.
Yeah. I got stopped one time going in Ohio. Older state trooper, looks like he should have retired 10 years earlier. And he says, do you know how fast you were going? And I says, you want me to lie or tell you the truth? And he says, tell me the truth. I says, I would guess around 80. I had him cruise control. I really don't know. And he goes, well, you're doing 84. I said, okay, good. He goes, is this your dog? I had a little small dog at the time. I said, yep. And he says, where you coming from? I says, Arizona. He says, where you going to? I said, Massachusetts. He goes, oh. I said, no, all at once. I says, I'm stopping, resting and stopping in Massachusetts before I get all the way home. And he goes, oh. He says, what happens when you get tired? I said, let the dog drive. And he had a little sense of humor, which is nice. And he says that I had the, what do you call those things, the radar detector up on the dashboard. And he goes, those things don't help you much because we see you before I see him. I guess that thing goes off before the radar detector goes off.
Well, he's right. He's right, because the instant-on guns, it used to be when they had the thing hanging out the window that was on all the time, the radar detectors would go off. But when they pull the trigger, unless they pull the trigger on the car in front of you, then it's going to set off your radar detector. But if you're the only one on the road, they're going to hit the trigger. It's going to read your speed, and then your radar detector is going to go off. So he's right. It's a little late by then.
And they ask us typical questions. When's the last time you got stopped and stuff like that? I said, I don't know. I says, I don't remember. Maybe 30 years or whatever. He goes, well, if everything's in order, he said, we'll take care of you. I said, okay. Comes back. He goes, slow it down. He says, try to keep it around 75. I think the speed limit was like 70 at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, you got it. And I just put on cruise control and helped me just get out of Ohio. And then I was able to go on from there.
Yeah.
It was nice. No. So you didn't go through New Jersey?
No, I mean, I went through New Jersey for about 4 minutes. It seemed like it was a really short trip through Jersey. It was a weird. I have to actually look at. When we came down to Florida, we had AAA do a triptych, and it had us going over the Tappan Zee Bridge and through part of Jersey and all of that.
Right.
Coming back. We just decided we looked at this other route and kind of looked on some stuff online and said, and so I took my map out, my highlighter, and said, let's try going this way. And it looked like it was going to be about the same amount of time. If anything, it was a boring ride. It was there wasn't a whole lot to look at. You'd get to busy kind of intersection on the highway where there'd be a truck stop, but I didn't drive by a Buc-ee's gas station, that big giant gas stations they have. I didn't drive by south of the border, which everybody talks about. Pedro and south of the border. They have those signs for 100
fireworks. And all that stuff.
All that stuff. I didn't see any of that stuff coming back. So it was a really kind of weird route coming back, and it wasn't. Like I said, it wasn't a particularly tiring route, which made the 10 or 11 hours behind the wheel pretty doable, I guess. So
it's too bad you didn't go through New Jersey because you had the luxury of not having to pump your gas.
Well, yeah. Actually, I got to tell you, I thought I was in New Jersey, and I stopped, and I must have still been in Pennsylvania because I pulled into a gas station, and I'm like, they pump your gas for you in New Jersey, and I'm like, oh, we must still be in Pennsylvania, and we were. We must have been right on the border, and again, we're in New Jersey for a really short period of time. We never were on the Jersey Turnpike. I don't know where we were, but the way we kind of set it up was we drew out this map, and then I used my Garmin navigation and kind of put in destination points, like, okay, I want to get to the Tappan Zee Bridge, so I want to, but I didn't put that in until I was somewhere where it wasn't going to want me to, go. It's kind of funny how GPS works sometimes, because I put in my home address and it wanted me to go across Route 4 in Florida over to Orlando and then up to 95 that way, and I'm like, I'm not going across the state over to Orlando and up that way. That's horrible.
Strange.
That's a horrible ride. So we I don't know. Now, once the rest of the shell shock part wears off, I'm gonna sit down with the map and figure out where I was.
Because if you check your settings, you might find out it says the fastest way or the shortest way.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
you got to check those things. I had
Yep.
a friend of mine that had one in his Toyota vehicle, brand new, and he wanted to go on the Mass Pike somewhere near the Springfield area. And he couldn't get on the Mass Pike. It kept telling him, do this, do that. He didn't realize it, that his setting was saying to avoid toll roads. So that's why his GPS is telling him not to get on that road. He couldn't figure out why.
Yeah, I had an old TomTom GPS that probably doesn't even work anymore. I don't know if I still have it. And it was and you could actually have it avoid highways altogether, which was kind of good if you were driving through like a little state like Rhode Island. And 95 and 195 are all jammed up. You could just hit the avoid highways, and it would take you through all these little back streets and stuff, which was kind of handy. But the Garmin one, I don't believe has that. But there is a lot of little setting, and I noticed in the Garmin one that I'm using now, it actually had alternate routes too. So it would be like, okay, here's the normal route we'll usually send you on, and here's the other route we'll send you on, which was kind of nice too. So.
You know, when you go from the Mass Pike to 84, I thought there was a diner there, the Blue Diner, I think it was called.
Maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That is one of the best places to eat. It seems like you have about 4 or 5 Greek guys running the restaurant there.
Yeah.
Delicious food, delicious piece of pie, homemade this, homemade that. Really good. We look forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the thing we haven't really done yet is to sort of relax and try to enjoy the ride and stop at like, oh, this is a great little roadside, restaurant or something like that. And we haven't done that yet because on our way down we were kind of anxious because we wanted to see how bad the hurricane damage was. And on the way home we just decided it was time to come home. So yeah. But one of these days we'll stop at all the cool little restaurants and diners and years and years ago on the program I had a guy who wrote a book about diners, about regular old-fashioned diners.
Yeah.
And he did a whole little cross-country trip of stopping in good little restaurants and the one thing he said to me was never get the blue plate special. I'm like, why's that? He goes, I had the blue plate special, which was meatloaf on 2 different occasions, and I was sick both times afterwards. So don't get the blue plate special.
Ooh.
And so I always thought about that. So never get the blue plate special.
Here's one of the benefits of going to Junior's over in Middleborough. Across the street is what?
Dave's Diner.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
That's
yep.
right.
Yeah, and
food over there.
where you can get. Yeah, I've been there a couple times, and Jack, the guy who runs that, does a real nice job, and the waitresses are all hot tickets too, so they're all they all get a little bit of a sense of humor. So yeah. Right.
Nice place to go.
Yeah.
I think Junior must have spent a little more time over there on his second cup of coffee or something. He hasn't called in yet.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where he was because it was he said he was actually going to. He had to go. He has a storage facility that he rents out for people who store boats and cars over the wintertime.
Sure.
And he said he had to go down and he had to get a car out of storage and a boat out of storage. So maybe he got tied up doing that. So.
He's getting too old to do that stuff.
Well, and it's his birthday. I think it's his birthday either yesterday or today.
Okay.
So, and I think he said to me he's 72.
Oh, wow.
And I got to tell you, when I was in his shop, and when I go there, one of the reasons I go there is I go hang around, I watch and see what's going on. Sure. And he was mounting up some 18-inch truck tires on a Chevy pickup truck, and he's hauling around these 18-inch big luggy 12-inch wide tires, and pretty good shape for a guy his age.
Oh, absolutely, it's a little fireball.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you know if he still has his boat that he takes on the lake?
He doesn't have the great big boat that was a 180-mile-an-hour boat. He sold that. He sold that to a guy out in wherever they race hot boats, like out in Arizona or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And but he still has he's got a smaller boat. He's got a pontoon boat that is what she says is Kala's boat with it's a tri-tune actually, so it's got 3 tubes on it, and I think it's got a 350 horsepower outboard on it. So it's a 60 mile an hour pontoon boat.
Wow. It's like an oxymoron there. Say, wait a minute, what is it?
So it's a big party barge, but it's a fast boat.
It'll get you out of trouble in a hurry.
Yeah. No, he's always got fun toys to look at, and even when I was in his shop, he was working on. There was a Ford Mustang that belonged to one of his customers that was that had a turbocharger added to it, fresh air intake, pretty nice looking car, and then there was a Chevy Nova, maybe like a 67 Chevy Nova with an LS4 engine in it, and I think it had a 6-speed or 8-speed automatic transmission, and that one just came from the guy who owned it, bought it from Barrett Jackson, and it actually had a bad rear end in it, and the thing only had like 100 miles on it. So Junior ended up calling the company that did it, and they sent him the new parts out, and so he got that squared away for the guy. And then the same guy, I think, had a Camaro in his shop that they were doing some stuff to. So, and then he had
or newer,
an older one, okay. Like 68, 69.
Oh, nice.
And then he had a car he was putting a digital dash in. Plus, they were doing regular maintenance to normal people's cars. So, so the performance stuff was all in the back shop. The regular stuff was all in the front shop.
Yeah.
And he was just working away.
What a character. My son went out and bought a vehicle for their 17-year-old daughter. They bought a 2017 Hyundai, I think it was.
Yeah.
I don't know what model. It had a 1.4 engine in it. And he goes, Dad, you're not going to believe it. It has a turbo in it.
Oh, yeah. Yep. No, that's...
You're kidding me. And a 1.4? He says usually it comes with a 2-point-something engine in it, but this one has a 1.4, and the body style changed. But it's like a turbo in a 1.4. It just kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah. No,
you step on the pedal, and it goes.
Yeah. No, it's amazing how many of these little cars have, turbocharged engines that do really well. Hey, Tom, we got to get going. We got to pay some bills. All right. Always nice talking to you.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye. Hey, we got to take a break, pay some bills. My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. If you want to join us, our phone number is 781-837-4900, 781-837-4900. Phone lines are open if you want to chit-chat with us about anything about your car. And when we come back, we got a bunch of stuff from the mailbag. A lot of emails came in this week of people with various car problems. We'll go over some of those when we come back. But if you have a question, we are live at 781-837-4900. You're listening to the Car Doctor program on FM 95.9 WATD. We'll be right back.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24/7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
Most painters you hire only do paint. Covering over rot and disrepair can lead to even greater costs down the road. Hi, I'm Sheldon Stewart of Stewart Painting, and we never cover up the rot. From Cape Cod to Quincy, we are a one-stop shop that brings carpentry to over 35 years of paint expertise. From your initial call to your final cleanup, our team assures a job done right. That means identifying, repairing, and replacing any damaged surfaces. Our carpenters replace trim, siding, and decking every day, providing a quality service that our valued customers deserve. So let our team of professional carpenters and painters bring you a peace of mind, knowing your project wasn't just covered up, but it was done right. To schedule your free estimate, call either of our Hyannis or Hingham offices, or to get a virtual quote, go to stewartpaint.com. And remember, Stewart Painting. Expect the best.
Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. Next week, hopefully everybody calls in the way they're supposed to. But next week, we're going to talk with an author. His name is Wes Davis, and he wrote a book. It's On the Road with Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and John Burroughs. It says a rare account of the brilliant minds as they set off in search of America. Some of the little comments about it. Davis conveys the excitement and dangers of early automobile travel and crafts of memorable set pieces. A historical road trip is well worth taking. Also, I think, and it hasn't been confirmed yet, we're going to be talking to Ford automotive historian Ted Ryan. It is also Ford's 120th anniversary. So 120 years for Ford, this account of Henry Ford and Thomas Edison traveling the country. That sounds kind of interesting. So we'll be talking with them about what we got coming up. And I believe next Sunday is Father's Day, which means the big Father's Day car show in Hyannis, downtown Hyannis. That's a big show. It attracts hundreds of cars. The negative, I guess, if you do bring a car to that show, you're sort of locked in for the day. You have to get there at like 8 in the morning to set up, and you can't leave. You're sort of stuck there. They don't want you driving up and down because they close Main Street in Hyannis. So that car show's coming up. And the Newport Car Museum, I think, has free admission for Father's Day for dads. So, and we gotta get Gunther. Gunther was supposed to be on the program, the owner of the Newport Car Museum, about a month or so ago. Something came up in his personal life. He had to cancel at the last minute. But they have their latest acquisition is a 2006 Bugatti. So that's like a $2.5 million supercar. So pretty interesting stuff always down there. And then there's the Audrain Museum down in Newport. And I've never been to that. I want to get to that one of these days. That's the one, if you ever watch, Leno's Garage, the guy who does the program with him, he sort of runs the Audrain Museum. So they have a lot of interesting programs. It's a small museum, but they rotate their cars through there fairly often, and they have a lot of interesting programs that they do. So, but I've never really gotten anywhere talking with them. Where the Newport Car Museum, we get to chat with them a lot. And then, of course, coming up in July is the big Endicott Estate car show. And, of course, in Foxborough at the Bass Pro Shops, there's car shows. If you're involved in the automotive hobby and you have a car show or a cruise night or a cars and coffee event, and you want to promote it on this program, you can either call in and actually talk about it, or you can send me an email at jpaul@aaanortheast.com, and we will try our best to promote your program. There are, in where I live here in Dennisport, at the Patriot Plaza where the Stop and Shop is, the Cape Cod car group, I forget what they're called. I don't know. We'll call them the Cape Cod Cruisers. I don't think that's right, but they do a show every Saturday night, usually from 4 to 7, something like that. And they usually have a good group of cars that show up. They probably have the members' cars, which is probably 25 or 30 cars usually show up. Plus, a lot of people come from off Cape and down to Chatham and Orleans. They'll come up for this, and there's always, like every event I go to, there's always something that seems like I haven't seen before. The little one, and it's not that little, but the one in the town in Florida that I'm in, that was a Wednesday morning cars and coffee. Usually people get there at 7:30, 8 o'clock, something like that, and pretty much everybody clears out by 9:30. And so it's pretty quick. People come in, have a cup of coffee, park their cars, walk around. And that one, and I probably went to it a dozen times this year, and every single time I go, there's always a car that I hadn't seen before. and some of them are pretty unique. There was a Rambler Scrambler that I hadn't seen before. There was a really interesting 70 or 71 Camaro, but it was ordered while General Motors was on strike, so it was ordered as a 70, and it might have come in as a 71, all original car. Interesting, some of the original cars I saw were actually from Rhode Island and Massachusetts that actually ended up down in Florida. One guy I was talking to lived in Harwich, I think, and he has 3 or 4 cars down in Florida, has 3 or 4 cars in Harwich, and kind of tinkers with them all over the place. So kind of fun things to see. Our phone number again, 781-837-4900. Lines are open if you would like to join us and talk about your car. And some of the stuff that came in this week was pretty interesting. Somebody wrote in and they said, I'm trying to get a handle on costs related to battery-operated electric vehicles. Could you kindly give me an idea of cost per mile or annual cost of maintenance of electric vehicles? The numbers seem confusing, so something to help me understand would be nice. Here's kind of as a general rule, if you could do apples to apples, so if you could do 2 identical cars that one was gasoline and one was a hybrid, or one was a battery electric car. So like a Kia Niro, for instance. You can get a Kia Niro in a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, gas car, whatever. So battery car. And for the first 5 years of ownership, they're pretty much the same because you're going to pay more for the battery car. Now, the maintenance costs are going to be way less because you're not going to do oil changes. You're not going to do brakes probably because brakes in electric cars last a really long time. In the Kia vehicles, I believe you have to change the battery coolant every 3 years or so. So there's a little bit of that to deal with. But then once you have the car for more than 5 years or so, then you start to see costs start to go down a little bit, so they can be a little bit cheaper. But then it also depends on where you're going to charge up. Some public charging stations are free. When I was driving an electric car in Florida, there was a charging station near where this farmer's market was that we would go to. So I'd go to the charging station, plug in, and it was free to use. It was also painfully slow, but it was free to use, so you could charge up while you were there. So it was okay to use that. Some have fees, and some of the fees are fairly expensive. So it depends on where you go. Most people, charge at home, and in Massachusetts here we have pretty high electric rates compared to other parts of the country where they're lower. But I found that even charging at home with a 120 volt outlet, it was still cheaper than the $3.59 I just paid for gas. So where it gets questionable is no one really knows what the latest electric car is going to be worth in 5 years or 6 years. So the residual value gets a little iffy at that point. So it's a little hard to really put a real number on it. Yeah, maintenance is going to be cheaper. Energy costs, depending on where you charge, can vary quite a bit. Recently, Ford and now General Motors just announced that they're going to be using the Tesla-style charger. So they'll be able to, GM and Ford will be able to charge at Tesla stations. Tesla stations can get pretty expensive to charge at. So, again, depending on how it's going to work. And then there's a little bit of confusion on the plugs. There is something called a CHAdeMO plug, which is a kind of weird-looking big plug for level 3 charging. Then there's also a CCS plug, which is for 240 volts. It's one plug for 440 volts. It is a double-sized plug, but it's sort of in the same power door, I guess. So you open it up and you flip down the bottom half, and it can take the bigger outlet. And then there's the Tesla-style plug, which is completely different than anybody else. Now, I would assume that there'll be some sort of adapter that can adapt the Tesla-style plug to the CCS style, or the other way around. I've heard online that there are, or read online that there are adapters that go from CCS style high-speed CCS style to Tesla-style plugs. I've seen the ones for the 240-volt ones, the level 2 charging, and it's just a simple plug that plugs into the cable and then plugs into the Tesla and can charge it up, and they work pretty well. So is there a real number? It's hard to figure out. But if you go to ev.northeast.aaa.com, we have a whole web page dedicated to electric vehicle information, commentary, new information, that sort of stuff. So you can find it at ev.northeast.aaa.com. You can find it there.
We have Wayne calling in from Duxbury.
Well, let's talk to Wayne from Duxbury. Wayne, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. The question I have a 2014 Ford F-150 XLT.
Yeah.
With 69,000 on it, and 2 years ago I was going to trade it in on a new the Platinum, and my boys talked me out of it. Thank God, I'd still be paying for it. And the question I have: what is the lifespan of these EcoBoost engines? I think it's a great engine. It really moves, and
it has been remarkably good because realistically, they don't work very hard unless you make them work hard. So you think about this little engine that can make 400 horsepower, and it makes 400 foot-pounds of torque. So it's a really gutsy little engine. But how often do you really call for that? Not that often.
No. I go on the beach occasionally, and that's about all the four-wheel drive I get.
Yeah. And even at that, you don't have your foot to the floor. So that's what increases the life of these engines, because they're not. If you were somebody who towed a heavy boat all the time or construction equipment all the time, you probably would, maybe you get a couple 100,000 miles out of the engine. But because the engine's not working very hard, it's basically loafing most of the time. It's you probably only need, out on the highway it's 60 miles an hour. You probably only need 15 horsepower to go 60 miles an hour. So the engine's just sort of kind of hanging out there, not doing a whole lot. So the lifespan of the engine is only limited to making sure you do the regular maintenance to it. And the one thing I have seen with these EcoBoost engines is on some of them, I've seen the turbocharger seals start to leak, and then they'll start to use some oil. But that's been a very limited number of vehicles. Most of them have been really good.
Using any oil.
Yep. No, most of them have been really good.
So you think it's good for a while yet? And there's no need to.
I think the only reason I could think
miles a year on it.
Yeah.
So.
The only reason I could think to trade it in would be because you'll get a good price for it right now, because it is that's the way the market is. On the other hand, right.
In great shape.
Yeah, but the downside is you're going to pay a lot of money for the replacement.
I know.
So I think at this point I'd hang on to it. Why not?
Yeah. So you think that engine is good for another 30 or 40,000? And
I think it's good for another 130 or 140,000.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that answers my question. I'm going to keep it.
I think that's the thing to do.
Yeah. Great.
All right.
I appreciate
thanks for calling in.
The input. You bet.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Before we take another break, I want to talk about this. This was somebody wrote to me and they said a car maintenance post on Facebook said if your car is running rough, try soaking the oxygen sensor in bathroom cleaner to clean up the deposits. Have you ever heard of this? Now, Jesse, you're not a big car guy, but what do you think about soaking an oxygen sensor in bathroom cleaner?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give anything a try, so I'm in.
You're in. Well, that's not the answer I had. The answer I had was, if I believed everything I read on social media, I'd be rich and good looking. Nope, I'm not. So my thought is...
Well, I'm rich and good looking, and it's because
you are.
I found a post online, and it fixed me.
That told you how to be rich and good looking?
Yeah, it worked out. So.
Yeah, there you go. Smart move.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. If the oxygen sensor is lazy, which can happen over time, it won't react to, when you push on the gas pedal, open the throttle. But it won't make the engine run rough unless it's so bad that it's causing spark plugs to foul. So, you can take the oxygen sensor out. You can clean it with carburetor cleaner, fuel injection cleaner, whatever they want to call it these days. They actually have something called oxygen sensor cleaner, which is carburetor cleaner. But honestly, if you're going to go through all that work to take it out because you think there's a problem with it, because there's codes pointing to the oxygen sensor, or if you're able to actually have a scanner where you can watch the oxygen sensor work and it looks lazy, just put a new one in. If you're going to go through all that work, get a decent quality. It doesn't have to be an original one, but it needs to be a decent quality oxygen sensor. Some people even believe that if your car is running as good as it should be, changing your oxygen sensor every 100,000 miles is money well spent. They're not that expensive these days, and changing it to get a fresh one in there sometimes can certainly help. Why don't we take another break? My name's John Paul. This is the Car Doctor program. You're listening on 95.9 FM. See, I said FM this time. WATD, your South Shores radio station. Give us a call at 781-837-4900. We'll be right back.
Talk radio with a South Shore point of view. Hi, I'm Kevin Chachi. Join me tomorrow for Monday Night Talk, where the South Shore comes to talk. Tomorrow night after the 6 o'clock news here on 95.9 WATD.
AAA is with you at every moment in your life. They have 24/7 roadside assistance, which covers you in any car you're driving or riding in, even a rental or your friend's wheels. They have great member rates on home and auto insurance, savings on travel, hotels, and rental cars, and discounts on hundreds of your favorite brands. You're covered on and off the road. Learn more at aaa.com/join.
The Y is better with friends. That's why when you join the South Shore YMCA this month and refer a friend, you'll both find a safe, encouraging place to be healthy, active, and stronger together.
When you find your why and share it with those you love, you'll discover a community that cares back, where everyone in the family can find their way to connect, to play, to unwind, and to thrive.
The Y offers hundreds of group fitness classes, basketball and tennis courts, pickleball, swimming pools, indoor cycling, yoga and meditation, Zumba, aqua fitness, family activities, inclusive and adaptive programming, and so much more.
And the Y offers free on-site babysitting, so mom and dad can enjoy a workout. Find the place where you, your family, and friends truly belong. Join the South Shore Y today and pay $0 joiner's fee. And when you refer a friend, you can both save 20% each month. Visit ssymca.org for details.
Find your Y at the South Shore YMCA. The better you belongs here.
This is Dan Cloutier.
And this is Kim Jennings.
We're from Birch Bear Records. Tune into Twilight Showcase Radio.
Hosted by Sandy Stride and Keith James.
On 95.9 WATD and 95.9WATD.com.
Search for Twilight Showcase on Facebook and visit twilightshowcase.org.
Twilight Showcase, tomorrow night from 7 to 9 on 95.9 WATD. Make an appointment Sunday morning at 11 for John Paul, the Car Doctor, on 95.9 WATD. Now, back to the Car Doctor.
And welcome back to the Car Doctor program. Go over a couple more questions. Real simple question. I have a 2002 Honda Accord. Should the spare tire be set at 60 PSI? Seems like a simple question. And just like the other four tires on the car, there's a recommended air pressure rating for the spare, which is usually located, if you open up the driver's door, there's a little placard there. It tells you how much air to put in the tires. In my own cars, I tend to ignore the placard a little bit. I keep the tire pressure correct for the tires on the car, but for the spare, I will usually air it up to whatever the maximum is on the tire. So, if it says 65 PSI max on the spare, I'll do that because you don't use your spare tire very often. Hopefully not at all, but, not very often. And a good tire might lose a pound of air a month. So you could, over time, especially, who knows, is this the original 21-year-old spare tire in this car? Maybe. So first off, how good is that tire going to be if you need to drive it any real distance? I would check that tire over for cracks and breaks and problems if it is the original spare. But if it looks to be in good shape, and it probably is the original spare, but if it looks to be in good shape, I'd probably put the Max Air in, and it's probably the difference between 60 and 65 pounds, only because if it's losing a little bit of air pressure, you don't want to have a flat spare when you go to need it. And I speak from sort of weird experience. I was doing a video about spare tires, and I used my own car. Not the car I have now, but the car I had previously. And the spare tire was mounted upside down under the car, like a lot of SUV tires are. And I checked it periodically, but not as often as regular tires on the car, like once or twice a year. And as part of the little talk I did, I said it is important to make sure the mechanism that lowers and raises up the spare is well lubricated, because what can happen over time, that can rust up, and you go to try to lower the spare tire and you can't. Or if it's a spare tire that just hangs on a bracket, the big bolt that holds the bracket up in place is all rusted. So it's a good idea to do a little bit of maintenance under there, lubricate it up with some penetrating oil, so it's doesn't get too rusty, and you can work at it that way. So I did that as part of the video. So I show lubricate here, do this, check the spare tire pressure. Well, what happened was the valve stuck, and I didn't notice. And normally, what you should do whenever you check tire pressure is, before you put the cap back on, you should make sure the valve seats properly. Didn't seat properly. I got a flat tire about a month later. Spare tire was flat. Good for me. So anyway, little words to the wise. Hey, I want to thank folks for calling in today, and until next week, make sure you wear your seatbelt, drive safely, be good to your car, and if you see an emergency vehicle by the side of the road, slow down or move over. It saves lives. Talk to you all next week. Bye-bye.